Let me tell you a little bit about the Engineer Research Development Center. I will use the term ERDIC in describing it. That, of course, sounds like a gastric problem, and I can assure you that on certain days it is. We will not use the term furlough at any time during our broadcast. Those of us that are federal employees have certain anathema associated with the idea of furlough right now. So bear with us on that, and let's see what's going on inside our state that so few folks actually know about. ERDIC is a combination of 7 laboratories for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers located in 4 states. 4 of those laboratories are here in Mississippi, a coastal and hydraulics laboratory, which was actually started after the 1927 flood on the Mississippi River. So the actual location, referred to as the Waterways Experiment Station, has been there since 1930 and is one of the American Society of Civil Engineers' 7 wonders of the engineering world, if you will, according to the giant plaque we have out front. Our Coastal and Hydraulics Lab, our Environmental Laboratory, our Information Technology Laboratory, and our Geotechnical and Structures Laboratories. All 4 of those are in Vicksburg, and I'll give you some information about the site in just a moment. The other sites are on the campus of the University of Illinois in Champaign. That's our Construction Engineering Research Lab. On a portion of land previously owned by Dartmouth College in Hanover, New Hampshire. That's our Cold Regions Research and Engineering Laboratory. And then our Topographic Engineering Center, which is on a portion of Fort Belvoir in the south part of the Beltway area of D.C. We have 2,500 employees. About 2,000 of those are federal employees. The organization is a go-go organization. It's government-owned, government-operated. The Department of Energy Laboratories, for example, would be more government-owned, contractor-operated by comparison. The budget that we had for this past year was right at $2 billion. Now, I'll talk to you a little bit about that some more as we go. That budget is provided by a lot of different customers. When you think of the Corps of Engineers, what you think of is you think of the river, you think of locks and dams, and you think of the types of things that we do in civil works, and we indeed do research related to those. Vicksburg is the home to 4 separate Corps of Engineer entities. One of them is my organization that I'm proud to lead. We're the research arm. The Mississippi Valley Division is there, led by Major General John Peabody. The Vicksburg District of the Corps of Engineers is there, and the Mississippi River Commission, with responsibility for various aspects of the river from Canada all the way to the head of passes, is there in town. So I can assure you, violating my own rules, that if we do get into the furlough process, that there will be Fridays that will be very quiet in Vicksburg because all those federal employees will be gone. That's about 3,000 people, actually, just in Vicksburg. The budget that we have, though, is a highly different budget made up of only about 10% or 20% of civil works. The vast majority of it is related to the warfighter, and I'm going to show you several examples of the work we do for the warfighter, and most of it is what we call reimbursable. And reimbursable in this case means simply that we're doing work for somebody who expects a product at a certain time for a certain amount of money. So in that sense, you could call us industrially based, but what it means is we understand the basic ideas of business just as you go through those basic ideas of business every day. These are the 4 campuses that I mentioned. The campus in Vicksburg is 700 acres. It has a lot of world-class capability associated with it. We actually lead the Department of Defense's high-performance computing program. We're the location of one of 5 high-performance computing centers for the Department of Defense. One of the other centers is actually down at Stennis. At any given time, those machines will be between 5th and 20th in the world in terms of total computing capacity. But even more importantly, the people that are drawn to those machines, the types of skill sets that are required to support those machines is very important to us. For example, in our particular organization, of the 2,500 employees that we have, 1,100 of those are scientists and engineers across the 4 sites again. Of those 1,100 scientists and engineers, almost 300 have PhDs, 600 have master's degrees. We have science, technology, engineering, and mathematics programs at all 4 of our sites, and we expect all of our folks to get master's degrees. For example, in Vicksburg, our location in Vicksburg for our graduate institute is a combination of Mississippi State, Texas A&M, and LSU. And I would venture to say, friends, that that is perhaps the only combination of Mississippi State, Texas A&M, and LSU that is a nonviolent environment that I'm actually aware of. My wife, for example, went to Mississippi State, as did my son, but her father and mother went to LSU. Since I'm from Kentucky originally and went to Vanderbilt, let's just say that football and basketball season are kind of difficult at the old Yazoo City homestead. Impacts to the state. There's 1,711 as of yesterday, or the day before yesterday, federal employees in Vicksburg. You see the breakdown of those folks in terms of number of contracts. I said they were all federal. Actually, that's the combination of contractor and federal. You see the number of scientists and engineers that are there, and I can assure you that those folks have a tremendous impact not only on the Vicksburg community, but over 200 of them live in the greater Jackson area and commute every day. You see the payroll there right at $190 million a year. That means that for the positions that we have, you've got over $100,000 jobs on average coming through the organization against a very well-educated organization. You see the federal payroll, and then look at the number of contracts in the state. And this is a takeaway that I would leave with you. Last year, my organization outsourced $1.53 billion. The total amount of contract work that went on last year to the state of Mississippi was $52 million. Now, why is that? As a federal employee, I don't have a set-aside that says, here's a set-aside for the state of Mississippi, and unless our congressional delegation does something, I will not. Okay? But what I do have is I have needs. The organization has extraordinary needs for technology, and almost anything that you can think of, actually, from extraordinary human capital to people that are helping in testing and evaluation to a variety of other things, all the way down to the idea of taking care of trash cleanup and things of that nature. So why is it that we contract so little with the state of Mississippi? And the reason for that is simply that the workforce that we have and the offerings that are provided to us have as yet not been the size that we would have hoped to see inside the state. We do enormous amounts of work with small business. We actually lead the Corps of Engineers in small business development every year. We are the largest single contracting group in the Corps of Engineers for historically black colleges and universities and minority-serving institutions. So it's not like we don't have the opportunity. We work very closely with the state schools, in particular with Mississippi State and with Jackson State. There's a limited amount of work that goes on with Ole Miss and with Southern Miss. Okay? But the opportunities, I can assure you, are very much there. Additional impacts to the state. I've mentioned the Graduate Institute, and again, we have Graduate Institute capabilities at all 4 of our sites, led by other groups. The University of Illinois, for example, leads the one in Champaign. Education is a very big deal to us. We are also the STEM coordinators for the state of Mississippi for the Department of Defense. Again, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Last year, just as an aside, last year we touched over 10,000 students with those STEM programs and over 500 teachers just in the state of Mississippi. Okay. So we have a tremendous outreach program for the state. Now let's look at what we do. Force protection is one of the biggest issues that the Department of Defense has, and it's actually a major issue that we have across the entire federal government. This goes back long before 9/11, but it's certainly been exacerbated greatly by 9/11 and continues to be by aspects of the war. Although we see on the television that the war is declining and that our troops are coming out of both Iraq and Afghanistan, I can assure you that the requirements, particularly in Afghanistan on a daily basis, are still very extreme. Those requirements go all the way from issues associated with improvised explosive devices to how we basically keep people safe while they're sleeping in urban environments that are hostile urban environments. In the future, where land forces perhaps would be less used than the Navy and the Air Force might be, the issue of doing force protection is a fundamental issue for us because we will literally have to carry in whatever we need to protect ourselves while we're there, and quite honestly, carry it back out again. So the idea of having a deployable capability is very important. We use a combination of capabilities to do this work. About 50% of the work that we do is computational in nature. We have a number of computational scientists and engineers, but we validate every piece of work that we do with a variety of scaled experiments. In this regard, we love to blow things up. Now, I realize I'm on what appears to be 2 videos going at the same time, and I will probably go to jail for that, but I can assure you we love to blow things up. In fact, even our environmental scientists get a little carried away every once in a while with what they're doing. So we blow things up out at Big Black, which is between here and Vicksburg. We blow up things down at Eglin. We blow up things in the desert in the Middle East. And we will begin to blow up things at Stennis here fairly soon through a relationship that we've developed with them. This work includes a capability that's shown here on the slide. It's called the Modular Protective System. It has an overhead cover capability and a capability to be able to be built up around our troops. 4 troops can build an 8-foot section of it in 15 minutes. It has this more ballistic capability than an Abrams tank does, while weighing much less than the Abrams tank does. That's because of the work we've done with the U.S. Gypsum Corporation in defeating rocket-propelled grenades and things of that nature. We do a lot of work on improvised explosive devices. IEDs continue to be the #1 thing that either harms or kills our troops in theater. It's also a major issue potentially in the homeland that the Department of Homeland Security recognizes. So in that regard, we have 4 systems. One's not actually shown here. 4 airborne systems that hunt out, find, and detect improvised explosive devices. These are the only 4 systems that have been fully accredited in theater for the Department of Defense. These were built with a combination of our capabilities across our locations and with large-scale capabilities of major defense contractors like SAIC and others. The 4th of these systems is actually called Saturn Arch. Saturn Arch has the ability to recognize homemade explosives that are being built and has been used very, very effectively both by U.S. forces and British forces in theater. The second panel that you see down there, the second set of panels, is what we call hard impact. Improvised explosive devices that were placed in culverts in Afghanistan have been an extraordinary level of problem for us. There are about 3,000 culverts in Afghanistan. It's very simple, or has been very simple, to get in and out of them in a variety of places. It's particularly true in the ring roads, which are the main roads that we traverse as U.S. military and coalition forces operate. We've been able to put in a variety of capabilities to sense people getting in them, to deter their ability to get in them, but even more importantly, to actually absorb the blast over the top of them over times. As a result, if you look at that first panel, you see something that is a mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicle, an MRAP. This particular vehicle is about 40 tons. It's one of the more powerful of the vehicles. We have a blast here that's about 80% of what we consider to be the maximum, so it's above average for this blast. This capability was blown up at the National Ground Intelligence Center. And what we find from this is that the vehicle itself, a 40-ton vehicle, was blown about 12 feet in the air, but it was accelerated over about 2 seconds at 100 Gs. Our troops don't survive those regardless of restraint systems. So we work with other aspects of the military, particularly the folks at the Tank and Automotive Research and Development Center in Flint, Michigan, to work on the issues of how to operate these most effectively. And what we found is that we can place what in essence would be thought of as a giant speed bump over the top of the most critical of these areas. And if you look in the second set of panels, you'll see that we would have actually been able to survive that had we been in the cabin. We work on disaster response of all types. With respect to my brother here who was speaking of doing hurricanes, we do them too. We were involved in all aspects of the post-Katrina forensics analysis that was involved initially with issues associated with New Orleans, but certainly had everything to do with the Mississippi coast because the maximum surge was actually in the Back Bay, not in New Orleans. From that, the research that we did found several things. We found a new way to plug, a fast way to plug any breach that would occur in a levee. This capability was created with the Department of Homeland Security. It self-inflates. The biggest capability that we have, the biggest requirement that we would have is the ability to get the thing to the site of the breach in time. If we'd had this capability for New Orleans, we would have probably kept 90% of the water out of New Orleans, and the result of that would have been a difference of several tens of billions of dollars. We have done all the post-forensics analysis on Katrina, as I mentioned, and we are working on Hurricane Sandy now in the Northeast. One of the things that we developed was something called a blue roof capability. You all would know in this state exactly what a blue roof is. When your roof blows off, you get a blue tarp that goes over the top of it. FEMA or the Corps of Engineers brings you that capability. You put it up there and you live under it until your roof gets well. You saw them all over the place above I-10. After Katrina, you'll see them again and again as hurricanes hit. You didn't see them below because there were precious few roofs below I-10 that were there. But the result of this is that we found that the requirement for paperwork to do this type of capability and to provide FEMA the information that it needed, the Federal Energy Management Authority, is something that takes on the order of maybe sometimes up to 2 to 3 weeks. We found a way to do it in about 2 hours. And you can do it from your iPhone or from any smartphone that you have back to the centralized database. We have tested that out, and the next hurricane that we have where it's required, it'll be used. And of course, we work the water resources area in a lot of different ways. The 3 main areas of requirement for the Corps of Engineers are the business lines of navigation, flood and storm damage reduction, and environmental work. And we have folks that do all of those. We work on invasive species. Now, whenever I give this talk, I'm always asked if we figure out what to do with kudzu, and we have. We leave it alone. Because if you make it mad, there's no telling what it will do. Now, 50,000 tons of DDT or a whole lot of Roundup would probably kill it, neither one of which is a particularly environmentally successful solution. But we work on other invasives, and many of those invasives are things that are of concern in our ports and in the waterways within the state of Mississippi. We work in climate change in a lot of different ways. This is going to become a major issue for us, and it's going to become a major issue for the Department of Defense, particularly in Alaska, where the changes in temperature there are causing changes in permafrost. Those permafrost changes affect the construction techniques that are used and the stability, in particular, of all of the infrastructure in the state. We work on something called operationalizing sustainability, which requires us to understand the environmental impacts of all the activities we do on ranges and around our various depots and manufacturing environments. The same environmental laws that apply to every portion of land in the United States apply to the training and operational activities of the Department of Defense on its installations. That's going to become very important to us, again, as we re-garrison over the next several years. And again, we work on energy-related issues. We do not develop energy technologies, but we look at how to honest broker those to see what is the most effective capability for an installation. How would you do business with us? Well, this slide shows something called the Broad Agency Announcement from our organization. It is an open solicitation for unsolicited proposals. And yes, I do know exactly what I just said. You may not, but I do, but I've practiced it more often than you have. This is a constant announcement that is up on our web location, provides information. You can see the federal business ops capability of it here as well. And it describes the roughly 200 or 300 areas or topics that we have within our organization that we're looking for contract support for in any given year. That's who we are. I thank you for the opportunity and look forward to any questions you might have later.